Heroes of Faith. You can be one too. In this series, we will look at some real superheroes of faith from the Bible. Men and women who believed in God, spoke to God, and lived for Him. How did they do it? Was it hard? Were there mistakes that they made? Join us for the next 12 weeks as we learn from what it takes to be a hero of faith. But before that, let's worship our greatest superhero, Jesus!
Up and away!
Up and away, that's what I wanna say. When I fly away and I save the day. If you're a bad guy on the run, I'm gonna get you just for fun. Fear is something I don't know. I fight for justice wherever I go. Up and away! I'm a superhero, flying around. No need to worry, you're safe and sound. Battling evil, fighting for good. I'm a superhero in your neighborhood. Is it a bird? Is it a plane?
No way.
Who could it be?
Check it out.
It's me!
Is it a bird?
No way.
Is it a plane? Who could it be?
Check it out.
It's me!
Battling crime, I'm in my prime. There when you need me every time. Undercover in disguise. Boom! Here I am! Surprise! It's okay, have no fear. Don't be afraid, help is here.
Just doing my job, man.
I'm a superhero, flying around. No need to worry, you're safe and sound. Battling evil, fighting for good. I'm a superhero in your neighborhood. Is it a bird? Is it a plane?
No way.
Who could it be?
Check it out.
It's me!
Is it a bird?
No way.
Is it a plane? Who could it be?
It's me!
Check it out.
Is it a bird? Is it a plane?
No way.
Who could it be?
Check it out.
It's me!
Is it a bird?
No way.
Is it a plane? Who could it be?
Check it out.
It's me!
If you're mean, you better go away. My muscles are getting bigger every day. David was a kid and I am too. You got Goliath and I'm gonna get you. I'm a superhero, flying around. No need to worry, you're safe and sound. Battling evil, fighting for good. I'm a superhero in your neighborhood.
No need to thank me.
Superhero, flying around. No need to worry, you're safe and sound. Battling evil, fighting for good. I'm a superhero in your neighborhood. Is it a bird? Is it a plane?
No way.
Who could it be?
Check it out.
It's me!
Is it a bird?
No way.
Is it a plane? Who could it be?
Check it out.
It's me!
Jumping from the tallest building, saving the world, or even saving a pretty lady in distress. Hiya! Simply just with my supersonic eyes. Wow, that would be so awesome. If only. Growing up, I never had any superpower. Even if after eating all the vitamins, Appletons, doing all my bicep curls, I even have to buy this suit from Lazada. My life is pretty normal. But then, God showed me a different kind of hero here. Ordinary people becoming extraordinary through the power of the Holy Spirit. People who were recorded in the Bible as men and women of faith. Even I wanted that. So come along and find out on this journey, what is it to take to be a hero of faith for Jesus. Our first hero of faith is a man who doesn't seem quite like a hero. In fact, when we first met him, he was already 75 years old. What's more, he was so scared that people might kill him when he went to Egypt during the famine, because his wife was so beautiful that he actually told her to lie to everyone else, saying that she was his sister instead. What was Abraham's story? Let's watch.
God's story. God's promise to Abraham. So part of God's story is about a promise God made to Abraham, and it begins like this. Once there was a guy named Abraham. He had a wife, Sarah. They didn't think they could have any kids, which was a major disappointment because they really wanted a family. But little did Abraham know that God had a very special plan for him. When Abraham was 75 years old, God promised to give him kids, and one day God would send the rescuer through his family. All God asked was that Abraham and Sarah leave their home first and follow him. Now, they had a tough choice to make. Leave all their friends and trust God, or stay comfortable. This was not easy. See, Abraham really wanted kids, but was already pretty old. Sarah was getting up there too. Not to mention, she had never been able to get pregnant. So if Abraham and Sarah were going to leave their home and trust in God's promise, they had to believe that God would do something that seemed impossible. The good news is, they decided to trust that God would keep his promise. That's always the right choice. So Abraham and Sarah moved from their home to a land called Canaan. Right away, God reminded Abraham of his promise. He said, "I will make your children like the dust of the earth." Can specks of dust be counted? If they can, then your children can be counted. This was God's funny way of telling Abraham he would have a lot of kids, because nobody can count every piece of dust. Well, this promise seemed great, but after a while, Abraham and Sarah still had no kids, let alone as many as the pieces of dust. Now, they were really old. Sometimes God doesn't remind us of his promises because he wants us to learn to trust him. But God took Abraham outside at night and told him to look at the stars. He reminded Abraham that he would give him that many kids. So Abraham decided to keep believing God. He and Sarah waited again. After more years, he got impatient. This time, God told Abraham, by next year, Sarah will have a son. But by now, Abraham was 99 years old. He and Sarah had both given up on having kids and God's promise. In fact, when Abraham told Sarah what God said, she laughed. It's probably not a good idea to laugh at God's promises, but Sarah was tired of waiting and had stopped trusting. The great thing is, even if we think it's impossible, God really does keep his promises. And just like God promised, Sarah got pregnant the next year after Abraham's 100th birthday. When her son was born, she named him Isaac, which means laughter. Sarah said, "God has given laughter to me. Everybody who hears about this will laugh with me." And think about it. A really old lady having a baby is pretty funny. God kept his promise to give Abraham and Sarah a son. Even though they didn't think it was possible, it was easy for God because he can do anything, including giving old people babies. And remember how God was going to give Abraham as many children as the stars in the sky? Well, Isaac grew up and had children who had more children who had more children. This kept going and going and going. And guess who eventually was born in Abraham's line? The rescuer himself, God's son, Jesus. All because Abraham followed God and trusted God to keep his promise. And that's the story of God's promise to Abraham. So in case you missed it, here's the quick version. Abraham and Sarah were old. God promised to give Abraham kids. Abraham and Sarah waited. They got impatient. God reminded them he keeps his promises. Abraham and Sarah waited more. They got impatient again. God told them Sarah would have a baby. Sarah laughed. She had a baby. Jesus was eventually born into their family. God always keeps his promises. And that's a part of God's story.
Every week in our Heroes of Faith segment, we are going to introduce different people from the Bible that is so incredible. Not because they never made a mistake before or they were always so obedient, but simply because they believed and trusted God. That is exactly what a real hero of faith is. Someone who always believed and trusted God. And today, let me introduce to you our hero of faith. And he is Abraham the Faithful. Abraham, a man of great faith. Though he was not always a perfect man at all. What made him faithful? Let's see his journey of faith. Firstly, Abraham was 75 years old when God told him to leave everything and everyone behind to a place God will show him. Abraham waited 25 years for God's promise that he will have a child and be the father of many nations. Abraham offered his own son as a sacrifice simply because God told him to. What can we learn from Abraham the faithful? His faith did not start at 75 years old. It probably started way earlier. Just like any skill or talent, we must train our faith from young. He always had simple faith in God. Abraham had a living faith, a faith with action. And in this segment called Keeping It Real, we are going to share the story of real people and how they lived their life by faith. Today, we're going to be learning about a young American boy called Jim Elliot. Jim grew up dreaming about being a missionary and telling everyone about Jesus. So in February 1952, Jim Elliot waved goodbye to his parents and landed in Ecuador to share the love and message of Jesus to an ancient group of people who had never heard about Jesus. This young missionary felt so strongly that he needed to be obedient and faithful to his call to God had given him that he was faithful to do it even if it meant that he could lose his life. Let's hear from our kids reporter about the remarkable life of Jim Elliot.
Jim Elliot was born on October 8, 1927 and passed away at the age of 29. Even when he was a young boy, Jim Elliot was always preparing to share the gospel to those who had never heard of Jesus. But nothing could have prepared him for the dangers he faced in the jungles of Ecuador. The Aucas were a very violent, unreached tribe in Ecuador. They were known for murdering other tribes simply for fun, jealousy, or just out of irritation. Together with his 5 other missionary friends, Jim made plans to be friends with the Auca tribe over a few weeks. Later on, they flew on a plane and landed at a nearby beach where they met a few Auca people and even shared a meal together. But a few days later, they saw a group of Auca warriors running towards them with their spears raised and killed all 5 missionaries. But remarkably, 3 years after the tragic incident, Jim's wife Elizabeth, together with their daughter Valerie, went back to the Auca village and shared with them the message about forgiveness in Jesus. Many Aucas became Christians. They are now a friendly tribe, and many missionaries and families live among the Aucas today. The faithfulness of the 5 martyred missionaries, though shocked the world, brought life and forgiveness and love of Jesus to the Auca tribe.
What an incredible lesson we had today. Abraham the faithful faced so many personal trials, yet he remained resilient and faithful to God. He had this deep conviction that God's words are true and that He will perform all that He promises. We see that in Jim Elliot too. He knew the cost when he was determined to stay faithful to God's command. Both of them were great heroes of faith. Starting this series, our memory verse will run over 3 weeks. Follow along with us, practice and recite it daily, and target to memorize it completely over 3 weeks. We are so certain you can do it. Let's start.
Hebrews 11 verse 6. Without faith, no one can please God. Anyone who comes to God must believe that He is real and that He rewards those who truly want to find Him. Let's do this again. Hebrews 11 verse 6. Without faith, no one can please God. Anyone who comes to God must believe that He is real and that He rewards those who truly want to find Him.
Kids, it is now time for the Hero Mission. Are you ready for your mission this week? Because you can be a hero of faith too. This week, Abraham the Faithful taught us how to be faithful in the small things, and God will trust us with the big things. Are you ready for your mission? Kids, your mission this week is number 1, read your Bible every day. Number 2, pray every day. You have 7 days to complete this mission. We will see if you have been faithful to complete your hero mission this week.
Our hero of faith this week is Abraham the Faithful. Keep watching every week as we reveal all 12 of our heroes of faith. Remember that you can be one too! Join us every Saturday at 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. for Zoom Hangout, and on Sundays at 4 p.m. for Zoom Playdate. Parents and children, remember to download this week's activity sheets on the website. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and remember to follow us on GTPJ Kids on Instagram. Have a great week ahead, everyone! See you next week!